Close your eyes for a moment and picture Cleopatra. You probably see kohl-rimmed eyes, dark hair cut in a geometric fringe, gold jewelry, a woman of extraordinary, almost impossible beauty, reclining beside the Nile, beguiling the most powerful men in the Roman world with her face. You probably see Elizabeth Taylor, and this is the first problem, because Elizabeth Taylor was born in London in 1932, and the woman she portrayed died in Alexandria in 30 BC, more than 2,000 years earlier. In those 2,000 years, a remarkable thing happened. One of the most powerful rulers the ancient world produced, a woman who commanded an empire, who spoke 9 languages, who held off the full weight of Rome for 2 decades, through sheer political intelligence, was slowly, methodically transformed into a seductress. Her mind was edited out, her power was rewritten as her looks, and the person who remained, after all that editing, was someone considerably easier to dismiss. She was never Egyptian. She was never primarily beautiful, and almost everything that made her genuinely extraordinary has been, for 2,000 years, left on the cutting room floor. Let's start at the very beginning, not with Cleopatra herself, but with the dynasty she came from, because this is where the first myth collapses. In 323 BC, Alexander the Great died in Babylon. He had conquered an empire that stretched from Greece to the edges of India, and when he died, that empire was divided among his generals. These men were Macedonian Greeks, not Egyptians, not Persians. Macedonian Greeks from the northern reaches of the Greek world. One of those generals was named Ptolemy. He took Egypt as his share of Alexander's empire, and he founded a dynasty that would rule it for nearly 300 years. The Ptolemaic dynasty. Cleopatra was Ptolemy's direct descendant. She was the last of his line. She was, in the most literal sense, Macedonian Greek, born in Alexandria, yes, a queen of Egypt, yes, but ethnically, culturally, dynastically, Greek. For nearly 300 years, the Ptolemaic dynasty ruled the most powerful kingdom in the Eastern Mediterranean, and for nearly all of that time, they did not bother to speak Egyptian. Think about that for a moment. They ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries. They sat on Egypt's throne. They wore Egypt's crown. They presided over Egypt's temples, and they never learned the language of the people they governed. Cleopatra was the first Ptolemaic ruler in almost 300 years to learn Egyptian. She also spoke, according to ancient sources, Greek, Latin, Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, Ethiopian, Parthian, and the languages of several other neighboring peoples, not because she was trying to impress anyone, because she understood something her ancestors had not. That power, real power, comes from being understood. Now, let's talk about the beauty, because this is where the myth is perhaps most persistent and most revealing. Our primary ancient source on Cleopatra's appearance is a Greek biographer named Plutarch, who wrote the life of Antony roughly a century and a half after Cleopatra's death. He never met her. He was drawing on earlier accounts, most of which came from Roman sources who were, it is important to note, her enemies. And here is what Plutarch actually wrote. He did not say she was the most beautiful woman in the world. He said, and this is worth pausing on, that her beauty was not entirely incomparable. What he described instead was something more interesting. He said that her presence was irresistible, that her conversation had an attraction that was hard to define, that her voice by itself was like a musical instrument, capable of moving between languages with such ease that she rarely needed an interpreter, that to be in a room with her was to be somehow captured by her in a way that had very little to do with how she looked. He described her mind, not her face, and yet the face is what survived. The face is what was painted. The face is what was cast in Hollywood. There is also the matter of the ancient coins. We have coins minted during Cleopatra's reign, bearing her portrait, not idealized portraits, official state images, the kind of image a ruler chooses to put on money, which is to say, the image they were happy to be recognized by. And those coins show a woman with a strong, prominent, hooked nose, a jarring chin, sharply defined features, not the delicate beauty of Hollywood, something far more striking, something that reads on a coin, across the width of a room, as authority. A historian named Stacy Skiff, who wrote what is probably the most careful modern biography of Cleopatra, observed that the coins, combined with what Plutarch actually wrote, suggest a woman whose power over people came from something that doesn't translate well to a poster. She was, Skiff concluded, compelling, dazzlingly, dangerously compelling, but it was the quality of her attention, her wit, her evident intelligence, her ability to be the most interesting person in any room she entered, regardless of who else was there. Julius Caesar did not fall under her influence because she was beautiful. Caesar had access to the most beautiful women in the world. He fell under her influence because she was smarter than almost anyone he had ever met, and she was not afraid of him. Consider what she actually did. By the time she was 18 years old, she had been exiled from her own kingdom by her younger brother, who had allied himself with powerful Roman interests and forced her out. She raised an army. She smuggled herself back into Alexandria, reportedly hidden inside a rolled carpet or a sack of linen, in order to meet Julius Caesar privately. She emerged in his presence, a fugitive queen who had just crossed a desert and evaded an army to get there, and she persuaded the most powerful man on earth to take her side, not with her beauty, with everything else. She and Caesar worked together to defeat her brother. She was restored to the Egyptian throne. She ruled for the next 2 decades, as one of the most astute political operators of the ancient world, managing Rome, managing her own court, managing a kingdom that was, simultaneously, the most powerful independent state left in the Mediterranean and the most tempting target for Roman annexation. She kept Egypt independent for 20 years, with nothing but diplomacy, intelligence, and the careful cultivation of exactly 2 Roman alliances that happened to define the era. This is the accomplishment. This is what the story is actually about. A scholar named Dwayne Roller, who spent years studying the primary sources on Cleopatra's reign, concluded that she was, by any reasonable measure, one of the most effective, rulers of the ancient world, not one of the most effective female rulers, one of the most effective rulers. Full stop. And yet the story that survived is mostly about what she wore, and who she loved, and how she died, about her death, because even the ending of Cleopatra's story has been transformed into something more romantic and less true. The snake, the asp, the iconic image of a queen pressing a serpent to her breast in a final, magnificent act of defiance. The truth is considerably murkier. She did die in Alexandria in 30 BC, in the days after Octavian's forces took the city, and her position became impossible. She was 39 years old, but how she died is genuinely uncertain. The snake story is already present in ancient accounts, but several historians have noted that it is extremely difficult to kill yourself reliably with an asp bite, and the ancient descriptions of her death are, in the judgment of many scholars, suspiciously neat. Some have suggested she used poison of a more certain kind. Some have suggested that Octavian, who needed her dead but could not be seen to execute her, may have arranged things. We do not know. What we know is that Octavian, who became Augustus Caesar and founded the Roman Empire, had every reason to want Cleopatra to go down in history as a dangerous seductress, rather than a dangerous rival. A woman who corrupted Roman men with her beauty was a manageable threat. A woman who nearly preserved the independence of the last great kingdom, standing against Rome, was a much more alarming one. And so, in the histories written under Augustus and his successors, the second Cleopatra was the one who survived. Here is what this history should make you feel. Not outrage exactly. These distortions are 2,000 years old. No one alive caused them, but perhaps something like the particular discomfort of realizing you have been looking at a person's shadow for so long that you forgot a person cast it. Because the real Cleopatra, the one Stacy Skiff tried to recover, the one the coins suggest, the one Plutarch accidentally preserved in the detail of his praise, is more interesting, more strange, more genuinely impressive than the woman in the gold headdress and the eyeliner. She was a linguist, a diplomat, a military strategist, a theologian, a philosopher, a physician. The ancient world credited her with writing medical and alchemical texts. She presided over the court of the richest kingdom on earth, and she did it not because of who she was born to, but because of what she made of what she was born to. For 20 years, she held off Rome, and then she didn't. And the history of her failure was written by the people who won. So close your eyes again. Forget Elizabeth Taylor for a moment. Forget the coal and the carpet and the cobra. Think instead about an 18-year-old girl in a desert, raising an army to take back what was hers. Think about a woman who decided, in a dynasty that had ruled Egypt for 300 years without speaking a word of its language, that she would learn it, and then 8 other languages, for good measure. Think about the most powerful man on earth, sitting in a palace in Alexandria, and across from him, a woman who was not afraid. That is the actual story. It is considerably better than the one you were told, and it has been waiting, very patiently, for 2,000 years.